Now let's look at something interesting. At the beginning of the 17th century, an Italian priest, a Jesuit, called Matteo Ricci, came to China to spread Christianity. In order to gain the trust of the Chinese officials, he brought in Western technology to impress the locals. One of the things that he supposedly did in China that is famous is that he taught the Chinese the geography of the world. And using Chinese craftsmen, he created a Chinese world map. Supposedly, the map was so good that for the first time, the Chinese got to know what the world was like. Let's take a look at some of the features in this map. Here's a part showing the Atlantic Ocean. On the map are some Chinese names, and they are supposed to be names transliterated from Western originals. Now, outside of Western Africa, you can see there's a name, Adalapai. Hai means ocean, so there is an Adalai Ocean. Well, what is Adala? Well, conceivably, that's Atlantic. But then when you go up north a little bit, outside the Iberian Peninsula, outside of Portugal, you have the name Daxiang. Daxiang is the standard Chinese name for the Atlantic Ocean, and it means the Great Western Ocean. Da means great, and Xi means Western. Why were there two names on the map? If the Chinese learned of the world from Matteo Ricci, and Matteo Ricci brought in the name Atlantic Ocean, why would the Chinese put in another name? Clearly, the Chinese knew of the Atlantic Ocean, and they had their own name for it, and the name was, and still is, the Great Western Ocean, Da Xi Yang. That means the Chinese knew of the world. Let's take a look at another part of this map. Here is a map showing northeast North America. In fact, it is showing the part that we know today as Labrador. On the map is the name Olandia Dazhou, or in the southern dialect, it would have been the great continent of Olandia. On the map, there is a name, America. So again, we have two names for the same place. Now this name, Olandia, is not a name for Labrador. It says Dazhou, which means the great continent. The great continent of Olandia. Now, clearly, America is the name brought in by Westerners, or perhaps Matteo Ricci himself. But Olandia couldn't have been brought in by Matteo Ricci because there is no such name in Western geography. It had to be a local name, a name that the Chinese had, which means the Chinese had a name for a place they were not supposed to know. Now, there is something funny about this name too. Olandia is not a typical Chinese name. As a matter of fact, Dia is almost 100% sure a transliteration of a Western name, something Ia, Philadelphia, Albania, Britannia. So the Chinese transliterated another Western name into Chinese, and it pre-existed because it showed up on the Matteo Ricci map. Now, what could that name be? The Chinese found a name and they adopted it, and then Matteo Ricci came and gave them another name called America. But they wouldn't let go of Hollandia or Hollandia or Hollandia or whatever. Now, I'm going to show you another map. Here's a map acquired by my friend Liu Gang, a lawyer from Beijing. It's supposed to be an old antique Chinese map. It's a map of the world. Now, this map was officially created during the Qing dynasty, which came after the Ming dynasty, but the map claimed that it was based on an old Ming dynasty map. Now, we know that the mapmaker put in some Western elements already. For example, the island of California, that was a Western import. But this map also had the Labrador, the Northeast North America Labrador. Now, this map had nothing to do with Matteo Ricci. Now, on the map, this Labrador is called Hollandia. Well, we now know where the name Hollandia came from. Clearly, it came from the Chinese name Hollandia, meaning that the Chinese name Hollandia somehow was picked up by some Westerner, and the Westerner added the Western suffix ia to it, and it became Hollandia. Originally, it was Hollandia. Now, what does Hollandia mean? Hollandia means the place where the emperor, dragon, Long, the place where the emperor rested. Was there a Chinese emperor in Northeast America? Well, that's another story, but in the meantime, Hollandia certainly became Hollandia, and it is likely that some Western geographer, upon hearing the name Hollandia or something like that, thought, oh, that's Atlantia, Atlantis. So that's how we got the name Atlantic Ocean. Originally, Europeans called the Great Ocean Mare Oceanum. That means ocean sea. Then, during the Age of Discovery, they changed the name to Oceanus Occidentalis. That means the Western Ocean. Then, a century or two later, the name became Atlantic.